on Sky News Australia. This is the Rita Panahi Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Rita Panahi Show. Coming up tonight, we cover everything from the youth crime crisis in Victoria to Prince William causing a diplomatic incident. Joining me tonight will be Josh Hammer, Rabbi Shmuley Bertaic, Sophie Elsworth and Rukshan Fernando, who had a shocking encounter with Victoria Police. This is becoming a pattern with VicPol. And as always, plenty of lefties losing it. Tonight's edition starring the leader of the free world.
Hey, whoa.
We've got plenty to cover. Let's jump right into it with the Australian newspaper's Sophie Elsworth. Sophie, in a previous life, you used to write exclusively about business and finance issues, and I'm very much interested in your insights about the number of businesses failing in Victoria or fleeing Victoria. This is the state that had 6 COVID lockdowns, devastating for the business community, and state taxes are soaring for businesses and property owners. But we've got the Assistant Treasurer claiming Victoria's going gangbusters.
We're going gangbusters as an economy. I mean, if you look at it, state of the state, we're flying along. The economy's really strong, and we're the engine room of the national economy.
What do you make of that, Sophie? Engine room of the national economy?
Well, we're not the engine room of the national economy, Rita. We've got soaring debt in Victoria. We've got businesses leaving the state. As we always see when reports come out, they're leaving the state in droves. And just so much financial burden on businesses. Victoria has become really the place where people don't want to invest and don't want to do their business, so they're taking it interstate. So anyone who thinks Victoria is the ideal place to do business, I think is living in another universe.
And the Herald Sun reports that Victorian business is going backwards, with a number of new startups trailing every other state and territory. This new analysis of ABS data by the IPA shows 13,000 fewer new businesses compared with 2021 levels. And when you compare that to New South Wales, they recorded an increase of 13,000 new businesses, and Queensland saw an increase of 7,600. So again, Sophie, why is Victoria lagging behind the rest of the country? Obviously, the state taxes are a factor, but what other issues are causing businesses to either not start in Victoria or to leave the state?
Well, because they keep introducing new taxes down here, Rita, it's an expensive place to do business. I think there's a lot of people scarred from the COVID pandemic when we lived through 6 lockdowns that seemed to go forever. And people just thought Victoria was an undesirable place to live and do business. So it's really the reputation of Victoria, sadly, you and I both live there, is, diminished. And people just think now, why not do business somewhere that is more friendly to business? So they're taking their businesses and so forth, away from Victoria.
And you've even got buyers advocates advising their clients not to invest in Victoria. So it's not just the business community, but just mum and dad investors are being told what's happening with the land taxes in this state is frightening. And this data also shows that businesses are closing faster in Victoria. So they're not starting up here, they're moving interstate, and they're closing, the ones that do open, faster than other parts of the country. Vecchi Chief Paul Guerrera says that confidence is low and other states just offer better opportunities. Now let's move on to an issue that is underreported, and that's Islamist violence against Christians in Nigeria. According to a new report, more than 8,000 Christians were killed in 2023, one of the deadliest years. That's according to the International Society for Civil Liberties and Rule of Law. Sophie, there's no marches in our streets for these slaughtered Christians. It's a topic that barely gets any coverage in the West, and yet it is a significant issue. You've got innocent people being killed purely because of their Christianity.
Well, it's appalling, Rita, really. But yes, you're right. It hasn't really made headlines. A lot of people would not even be aware of this. It doesn't quite fit the agenda of a lot of people, who are not pro-Christian. So really concerning, Rita, that a lot of people would be completely oblivious to the fact that this is going on. So raising awareness that this is happening is really important. But I think a lot of the time we see people jump on causes and forget there's other issues out there aside from the ones that always make the headlines.
Now, Sophie, to a story closer to home, Victoria. We reported on a vicious attack against a woman with special needs at Southern Cross train station. Now, this footage I'm about to show you went viral on X, formerly Twitter. Millions of people viewing this around the world. Have a look.
Their violent attack filmed by friends. After taunting her, they punched her repeatedly in the face, throwing her to the ground and kicking her in the head. An elderly man passing by stepped in as the woman lay helpless on the ground at Southern Cross Station. The brutality all proudly posted on social media.
That was aim. You got what you deserve.
Well, Sophie, there's been a development today. Suzanne Delabasic reports in the Herald Sun that 4 girls, including one aged just 12, have been arrested. This development comes as the paper reveals the alleged activities of a female youth gang who refer to themselves as TTK, which stands for Train to Kill. It's a shocking case, Sophie. It's shocking that one of the alleged assailants is only 12 years old. And when you consider that this state is raising the age of criminal responsibility this year and then raising it again to 14, it seems to be completely the wrong way to tackle this issue.
Well, Rita, it is, and it's really sad on all fronts. That vision is just horrific. And the fact that children this young are involved in such despicable acts, obviously, there's allegations here of all sorts of atrocious behaviour. We have a crime problem in Victoria and the Allen government needs to do something about it. And it's unfortunately these stories that make the headlines that realise how serious this issue is and how widespread it is.
Well, thankfully they've been arrested. It's before the authorities now, so we'll leave their guilt and innocence to them. But just to have vision like that go around the world, it paints Melbourne in such a terrible light, and the state government here just does not take the youth crime issue seriously. They think it's some sort of a, joke or a conspiracy. Now, remember, Sophie, this is a much lesser offence, that teenager who threw milk on a group of women on a boat in Melbourne. Let's have a look.
No, it wasn't us. We're actually going to steal.
The stupid things these kids do for social media clout. Well, it's been reported today that boy has been suspended from his elite private school, Melbourne Grammar, but police appear, Sophie, to have wound up their investigation.
Oh, Rita, look, I have a bit of sympathy here. Stupid thing to do, absolutely. The young lad shouldn't have done this. I think he's learned a very tough lesson now, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be doing this again. Pretty tough punishment by the school. But Rita, it's not acceptable. But unfortunately, in this day of social media, people seem to blast all the information out there. And in this case, it's been an act that's really backfired and caused this young lad a lot of grief.
Oh, you are a soft touch, Sophie Elsworth. I've got to tell you, I've got a 16-year-old, and that age, they know the difference between right and wrong. And doing that, it might seem like a trivial thing, particularly compared to the video we saw previously. But it just recklessly ruining people's day, covering them in milk on a hot day. I mean, it's just mindless. So I'm not too upset at all that he's facing some serious consequences there. Now, let's go to a wild road rage brawl that's been recorded. This happened in Adelaide. Let's have a look. Oh dear me, pretty embarrassing stuff there, Sophie, but for both those guys. I mean, they can't control their tempers in traffic and they couldn't fight to save themselves. That was pathetic all round.
It was pretty ridiculous, Rita. What I was shocked with is how long that red light stayed there. Didn't seem to be any moving traffic for a while. And what about the lady behind, just sort of getting in and trying to break it up? This is really ridiculous. I mean, grown men in the middle of the day having a punch or ledge punch on. I mean, look at it. Was it a punch on? I couldn't really see what they were doing there. It looked so ridiculous. Just really embarrassing. And obviously that driver caught it all on camera.
Oh, yes. There was a brave drivers there coming out of their cars and trying to break it up. I would have just sat there with the popcorn. Now, in Queensland, I'm sure this footage is going to go viral. A family's road trip in Bundaberg was interrupted by this. This is a new fear that's been unlocked for me. You can have a snake come straight out of your air conditioning duct. How is that possible, Sophie?
Oh, isn't that awful, Rita?
I'm going to be paranoid driving now.
Oh, look, I think you'll be okay in suburban Melbourne, Rita, but I'd be more worried. I must confess, I cannot stand mice. I'd be more petrified if it was a mouse, believe it or not. Snakes I'm okay with, but not mice. But that is pretty horrifying to see that come out when you're in your car.
Oh, it would be a guaranteed accident if I was behind the wheel, I can tell you that much. Now, let's go to the US. I've got Josh Hammer on later in the program. Newsweek's Josh Hammer is absolutely brilliant on US issues. But let's discuss this one with you, Sophie. It seems like Joe Biden's entire family, including the pets, can't control themselves. The first dog, Commander, it's been revealed today by CNN, was involved in 24 separate incidents biting US Secret Service personnel. That was before he was relocated. These incidents happened at the White House and other locations. And CNN also reports these 24 bites do not include additional incidents involving executive residence staff and other White House workers. I mean, I've often said there are no bad dogs, only bad owners.
Rita, that's really serious. This isn't just a one-off incident. This is numerous incidents and pretty scary stuff. Dog bites are really serious. They can actually really hurt someone or even kill a person. This is a problem. I mean, seriously, I cannot believe they still have this dog when it's biting that many people. It's shocking, Rita.
Well, it is shocking because you look at the number of incidents and it's not some yappy little dog. I think it's a German Shepherd, so it's a serious dog, and if it bites you, you feel it. Now, let's go to the UK, where King Charles is undertaking royal duties again after his cancer diagnosis. This has obviously been met with elation. It's good news, Soph, that he's well enough to resume duties.
Oh, Rita, this is the story we need. We need a bit of positive news at the moment in the world. And I think it's lovely to see King Charles, back on his feet, out and about, and wish him very well in his recovery. I mean, pretty quick recovery, given the situation. And now he's back on his feet and out doing royal duties. So let's hope he's bounced back, recovered, and it's a full recovery.
Now, Sophie, you wanted to talk about Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift's boyfriend, landing in Sydney, but I'm sorry, I've banned any talk of that on this program. So, Sophie Elsworth, thank you for your time this evening. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Rita.
We brought you footage of a man yesterday who was attacked by pro-Palestinian protesters in Melbourne, only to be marched off by police for supposedly disturbing the peace. Well, he wasn't the only one. Independent journalist Rukshan Fernando was also at the town hall when this happened. Joining me now is Rukshan Fernando. That did not look like a peaceful protest to me. You had a group of people who seemed to be enraged, who were targeting you. Tell me what happened. What happened, and what did Victoria Police do?
Yeah, look, Rita, I went there in my capacity as an independent journalist and also a resident of the City of Melbourne, because I saw the City of Melbourne was talking about this ceasefire motion. And as I was filming and doing what I always do at these type of events, I was approached by members in that group of the pro-Palestinian supporters who didn't like my presence there, not because I had done anything to them or not because I had any kind of,
So had you done anything to antagonise them?
No.
Had you said anything? Was there anything before the footage that we saw that
No.
could explain that?
Merely my presence there and the fact that they had then communicated to the police as well that my association with a Jewish Australian individual was a problem to them, and for that reason that I should not be allowed to be there doing my job as a journalist.
So there was some sort of a guilt by association because you're connected to a Jewish Australian they're not
Journalist.
fond of.
That's
okay,
correct.
that makes perfect sense. Now, you would hope there was a big police presence on the night, but from what I've seen of the police's interaction with you, they were victim blaming. Have a look at this.
This is ridiculous, man. How can you move me on? I wasn't doing anything.
No. Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm avoiding a punch on. That's
What
I'm
punch
doing.
on? These people are threatening me.
You're gonna get your head punched in.
For what? Are you saying they're violent?
Mate, you're causing the issue.
I'm not causing the issue. I'm just reporting.
Okay. Well, I respectfully ask
You guys have to protect me.
I respectfully ask.
I respectfully ask you.
On the other side of the road. Not in the crowd. Okay?
I'm doing it here.
No.
I respectfully ask you.
You either do it on the other side of the road, or
Why don't you guys protect journalists? There's other journalists here.
okay.
Why are you picking on me?
I'd like you to go stand up.
Why are you picking on me?
So the police insisted that you go across the street. It's quite a wide street, that particular one. What happened when you did eventually move across the street?
So yes, I did eventually move on because I realised the police were not interested whatsoever in ensuring that those people who were agitating would not stop doing that in that space. So I crossed the road as the police had instructed me. And as I was doing that, some of those people from that group, the people who were being aggressive towards me, followed me across the road. And it is at that point they targeted me. A group of them surrounded me. And one of the individuals who had earlier asked me these questions about my associations with this Jewish individual then proceeded to assault me, both in my upper body and then by kicking me in my shin.
Are you going to make a police complaint, or have you already made a police complaint?
See, the thing is, this all happened in front of members of Victoria Police. And this masked individual that did assault me in front of members of Victoria Police, I tried to get the police at that moment to identify the individual. He was right there in front of the police. But
So he wasn't making an effort to get away or run away. He was hanging around.
They were very comfortable in the presence of the police doing these type of actions. And they knew the police probably was not going to identify them. And they said they would identify the masked individual at a later point.
Oh, well, yes, that's much better, isn't it, to try to identify someone who's masked rather than actually apprehend them right then and there when you've seen them do something. There's just a real issue at the moment with the police and what they prioritise and the way they police. That seems to be a two-tier police system.
Yeah, I mean, I'm noticing a lot of police indifference within the community. There were some incidents that I observed as well from a distance with Jewish members of the community that had attended this particular event as well. And the police indifference in these situations seems to take side with people who are the instigators in most of the time in these incidents, and they end up blaming innocent members of the public who are just about trying to get along with their lives. Whereas in my instance, they blamed me as a journalist just for being there for doing my job. So it is this kind of culture where they take the easy road out instead of actually enforcing public safety in a manner which respects the rights of journalists, which respects the rights of individuals in our state to participate in democratic institutions like a council meeting without being harassed by protesters.
Well, you could make the argument that it's almost like mob rule. The group that's got the numbers and is more likely to become violent is the one that they try to appease. But then we did see during the lockdowns, when there were anti-lockdown protesters, they weren't too worried about the numbers there, and they weren't too worried about setting off people. In fact, they almost employed tactics that led to that kind of behaviour. So we've gone to Victoria Police. I'll read you out their response. They said that in a separate incident, a man who was filming the rally reported he was kicked in the leg during an altercation with the protest group. Police spoke with the man, however, he did not wish to make a statement at the time, so investigators will follow up with him at a later date. Police will review CCTV footage from last night, however, encourage anyone who experienced or witnessed prejudice-motivated crime to report it to police. Any report of this nature will be taken seriously and thoroughly investigated. So that was Vic Police's response to us when we went to them yesterday. What's your response to that? Do you expect Victoria Police to contact you and follow up with your complaint?
They did contact me earlier today, but I just want to make it very clear for people watching that the police were present, and I let them know about my attacker, who was also present at that very moment, and they didn't want to act on it. They wanted me to make a statement at that point, but the reason they wanted me to make a statement was to take me away from doing my work as a journalist, away from that area, so it makes it easier for them once.
Are you going to now make a formal statement and a complaint and follow through with that?
Yes, 100%.
Rukshan Fernando, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Rita.
Coming up, Israel blindsided and dismayed by Prince William's call for a ceasefire. I'll discuss that with Rabbi Shmuley Bertayek. And next up, lefties losing it and the latest from the US. Welcome back. Now it's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's start with an enraged trans activist attacking youngsters at a Students for Life rally in Richmond, Virginia. You can be sure if someone with an American flag or, God forbid, a MAGA flag did that during a Pride rally, they most likely would not be able to walk away. Funny how those who claim to be oppressed victims can be the most entitled and violent. And of course, well, we're all required to abide by preferred pronouns, but he, she, even they, well, they're a bit old-fashioned now. But don't worry, some new pronouns have just dropped, and this lass is going to teach us how to use them.
Do you see this person next to me? E is my friend. C has had to put up with a lot to get to where Per is today. I just want to let Glint know that Thon is valid, that verb pronouns are valid, and that Sarah identity is valid.
Okay, per glit, what? Okay. It's time to check in with the US president, who was asked by a reporter, are you going to California? Is this about coming up with a plan B for 2024, i.e. Gavin Newsom? This is what Biden's hopelessly incoherent response was.
Going to California, is this about coming up with a plan B for 2024? Does Gavin need to stand by?
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm looking at you. We're looking at you. Hey, whoa.
So in response to a question about whether Gavin Newsom needs to be on standby, the president said, and I quote, are you ready? Well, I'm looking at you. We're looking at you. Hey, whoa, and so on, okay? All right. Meanwhile, over at CNN, their Russian collusion hoax deranged audience and anchors were no doubt losing it when they heard this news.
Is there any good financial news for Trump?
Yeah, so very interesting. And Audie, in fact, was the one who pointed this out to me. Trump's Truth Social share worth. So back in 2022, it was about $700 million. Last year, it was less than $100 million. But there's this idea, essentially, that Truth Social will, in fact, be able to go public. And how much would Trump's shares be worth if it does, in fact, go public? It could be upwards of $4 billion. That's billion with a B.
And then they all sat around and cried. Now to the UK, where anti-Israeli protesters threw eggs at GB News presenter Martin Dobney. And this happened in full view of the police, who did precisely nothing.
You want to listen? If I want to, throw
Now let's have a look at some vegan protesters who are outraged that Starbucks charges more for almond and soy and other non-dairy options. And of course, the best way to deal with that is to set your feet in a block of concrete.
Would you like me to put my sign high?
Sure.
Save the planet! Save the cows! And the vegan! Upcharge now! Save the planet! Save the cows! And the vegan! Upcharge now! Save the planet! Save the cows! And the upcharge now! Save the planet!
Did you catch the dude at the end? He was drinking real milk and holding up a sign saying soy milk sucks, bless. Let's end lefties with this dad celebrating the fact that his son identifies as a pirate and listing the medical interventions that are about to happen. Very droll work indeed.
I'm proud of our 6-year-old son. He just came out as a pirate. He's known since he was 2 months old, but the Children's Hospital have been great. They agreed to pop out an eye, saw off the old hand for the hook, and also one bit of his leg for the peg leg. So it's been really good. His pronouns are P and Irat, and you will respect him.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has announced that he is suing a Catholic non-governmental organisation operating in Texas named Annunciation House. He alleges that it is encouraging illegal immigration and even operating a stash house for those entering illegally. Joining me now to discuss is Newsweek Senior Editor-at-Large and host of the Josh Hammer Show, Josh Hammer. Josh, this organisation describes itself as a volunteer operation that offers hospitality to migrants, immigrants and refugees in El Paso, Texas. But it seems they're doing a bit more than that.
Yeah, it does. Look, Rita, you're not allowed to abet those who would violate the law. And, you know, one of the great ironies, one of the great understated things when it comes to America's immigration discourse is that we have all this talk about illegal aliens, or heck, maybe we should call them just undocumented workers, to use the rhetoric of the day when it comes to the left. You know, their very first act when it comes to getting in this country is a crime. It is a crime to cross the border without permission, without authorization to do so. So if you are an NGO, if you are an organization, if you are a corporation, if you are an individual person, if you are an 18, 19-year-old United States adult, and you are aiding and abetting those who are trying to commit a crime, which again, crossing the border is, then you are liable to face repercussions for that. So good for Attorney General Ken Paxton. You know, Ken Paxton is actually a very controversial figure, not just in America at large, but also within the conservative movement. I happen to be a longtime big fan of his for reasons just like this. Ken Paxton is not afraid to wield the political power that is vested in his particular political office to try to punish the forces of civilizational arson and to try to boost the forces of civilizational sanity. And, you know, in America's long, roiling, cold, but at times sometimes getting slightly hot culture war and, frankly, cold civil war, we need people like Paxton on our side. And what's happening in Texas is unprecedented, Rita, in American history. We've all seen the footage. It's absolutely horrible. It is absolutely horrific. And, you know, this charity in El Paso, they might think that they're acting in humanitarian fashion. They might think that they are helping people, but you know who's being harmed by illegal immigration? It's all the other people of Texas. It's those who are competing against illegal aliens for jobs. It's those whose wages are being suppressed. It's those whose safety is being undermined and jeopardized on a day-in, day-out basis. It's the shelters. It's the hospitals. It's all those whose services are being strained by these criminals, by these trespassers, by these lawbreakers. So I say good for Ken Paxton, and also good for his boss, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, who is continuing now weeks into this fight with the federal government. Greg Abbott actually doubled down earlier this week, said that he is not going to back down from having the Texas Rangers and the Texas Department of Public Safety secure the southern border. That is Texas's right as a sovereign entity in our federal system of government. Good for the state of Texas. They are leading the way right now.
Absolutely. And I don't know, there's a lot of Ron DeSantis about Ken Paxton. I've been watching his work as well. He just does practical stuff. He does the hard stuff to make meaningful change. And then the numbers in the US just astonishing. More than 7 million have crossed illegally into the country under the Biden administration. You think about 7 million, that's bigger than the population of big cities. I mean, it is transformative and it needs to stop. Now, Josh, the fallout from this farcical ruling against Trump in New York continues. We've spoken about the truckers boycott on this program before, and experts warning it could have businesses thinking twice about investing in what is a banana republic state when it comes to lawfare. And here is a prime example of that. Grant Cardone, boss of Cardone Capital, he's going to discontinue all underwriting in New York real estate. He wrote, immediately discontinue all underwriting on New York real estate. The risk outweighs the opportunities at this time. Josh, how little trust do people have in the justice system in America? From afar, it looks to be hopelessly politicised and weaponised in some cases.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. Look, I mean, I'm a lawyer by background. I went to law school. I worked at a big law firm. I clerked for a federal appeals court, for a federal appeals judge back in Texas, back in the year 2018. And I still speak at law schools all across America, for that matter. And, you know, it's not an easy thing for someone with my background, based on what I just said. It's not easy for someone like me to kind of just sigh and say, you know what, it's really kind of lost. And I'm not saying it's lost, but we are really, really far down the rabbit hole at this point, Rita. And unfortunately, there's really not a ton of glimmers of hope at this present moment, because what's happening to Donald Trump in particular when it comes to the Democrats' sprawling, unprecedented, uncharted waters lawfare operation. I mean, look at what's happening in New York with this so-called fraud ruling from Justice Arthur and Goron in this Tish James. First of all, Tish James, the Attorney General of New York, when she ran for Attorney General of New York, she literally ran on the campaign stump on a Get Trump platform. She was telling you that when I get there, I'm going to do everything I can to try to get him in jail, try to bankrupt him, try to do whatever it takes. That is completely un-American. It's the definition of being un-American. In fact, in the American Constitution, we have a prohibition on what was known as so-called bills of attainder, which is pieces of legislation that actually name someone. You can't have a bill that is targeting someone here. So why would you be able to then run for office and just target someone on the campaign trail? It's ridiculous. $460+ million, including backdated interest payments. Absolutely disgusting. So you take that, you combine it with the actual criminal prosecutions. So there's 4 criminal prosecutions. You add that to the ballot access challenge, this recent Supreme Court case for which we are still now awaiting a ruling in the Trump versus Anderson case, this appeal out of Colorado to see whether they can even deny him a place on the ballot outright. It's absolutely unreal. So whether it is bankrupting him, whether it is prosecuting him, whether it is denying ballot access, whether it is God knows what else, they're literally leaving no stone unturned whatsoever to try to deprive him from being the 47th president of the United States after, God willing, Joe Biden finishes his presidency this November. It's absolutely appalling, Rita. And at this point, I've said it many times, I'll say it again on your show right now. If Republicans have any intention whatsoever of fighting back against this lawfare, unfortunately, they're going to have to get their hands a little dirty and get in the business of trying to take some high-profile scalps on the other side as well. Such tactics like that, they might seem a little unnatural for Republicans who talk a lot about neutral enforcement of the law, but you have to rebalance the pendulum. And sometimes you're going to have to bloody some noses on the other side in order to then reach a mutually agreeable long-term standoff.
You are 100% right, and it just shocks me that so few Republicans realise that is the only way they can fight this insanity. You can't be playing by a different set of rules and expect your opponents to respect those rules when they have shown you what they're capable of, and they have got no bottom. They're trying to imprison their main political rival. That's where we are. So trying to have a discussion about this, I think we're well past that point. I think you're absolutely right. They have to employ some of these tactics themselves. Now let's talk about El Salvador President Nayib Bukele, who's annihilated a BBC reporter who criticised his tough on crime stance. That country has gone through a anti-crime revolution. And let's just see how he schooled this journalist.
We took the recipes from the European Union, we took the recipes from the United States. None of the recipes worked. More bloodshed, more people were dying. So what do? Okay, we do something and we save people. And now we're the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. But suddenly something's bad. Oh, but you shouldn't do that. You should do what I think you should do. Why? Not only we have the right to do what we think is right, and what the Salvadoran people are going to decide whether or not they want this day in free elections, but also we've proven it works. So stop trying to make us use your recipes because they don't work here. You have your own system. We don't tell you that you shouldn't have a monarchy.
The falling crime in El Salvador has been extraordinary. In 2023 alone, the homicide rate fell 70%. Josh, it turns out when you lock up violent criminals, they can't commit any more crimes.
Yeah, you know, Rita, the inspiring story of Nayib Bukele has been one of the great political stories on the world stage over the past year and a half, 2 years. I'm actually flying to Washington, D.C. from Florida, where I live in just a few hours, to speak at the CPAC conference that is being held right now in Washington, D.C., and Bukele is actually speaking at it as well. I'm hoping that I get to meet him actually in person because I want to personally thank him. His country, El Salvador, was one of the murder capitals of the world, not just one of the murder capitals of North America, one of the literal murder capitals of the entire world, had one of the absolute highest homicide rates, murder rates, other rates of other forms of violent crime, rape, you name it. And MS-13, the horrific transnational gang that is very close to many of the leading Mexican drug cartels, MS-13 comes from El Salvador. It was as bad as it gets. And you know what? Are people gonna complain that what he's doing is maybe it's illiberal or maybe it's not nice? Sure, they can complain all they want, but the results speak for themselves, Rita. The violent crime rate, if I'm not mistaken, in El Salvador right now, it might be lower than the United States is as a whole. It's certainly lower than the overwhelming majority of major blue American cities. It actually might be lower than the country as a whole there. So if the results are working this well, if he is taking one of the murder, I think it is. Yeah, if he is taking one of the murder capitals of the entire world and has made it on a per capita basis safer than the United States. Are you kidding me? I mean, at that point, take your delicate, idiosyncratic sensibilities and throw them out the freaking window. At that point, it's time to go to school, to look at what policies he's doing and to just implement it, start there.
You are right. I think that the homicide rate now, the violent crime rate, is on par with Canada, and so one of the lowest in the region. So amazing transformation there, and it probably explains why he won the election with, I don't know, around 80% of the vote. It was comprehensive. Josh Hammer, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Rita.
Coming up, Israel blindsided and dismayed by Prince William's call for a ceasefire. I'll discuss that and more with Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. You're watching the Rita Panahi Show. Last night I spoke about Prince William's call for an end to the fighting in Gaza. It was undoubtedly a political message with, well, potential for all sorts of fallout. It's now being reported that Israel is dismayed by the Prince's statement. According to The Telegraph, Israeli authorities are understood to have been caught off guard and believe the statement is naive. There are also reports that they do not want to risk entering a public row with the future king following his unprecedented royal intervention. Joining me now to discuss this is author Rabbi Shmuley Boteach. Rabbi, it looks like Israel was blindsided here by the future king's comments, which essentially amounted to calling for a ceasefire.
Rita, I wish that Prince William knew some of the history, I'm sure he does, of his own great-grandfather, King George VI, because when he was the leader of Great Britain, he sanctioned the carpet bombing of entire German cities. We're talking Essen, Cologne, Berlin, Saxony, where civilians were deliberately targeted. This isn't in the time of Genghis Khan. This is in the time of his grandparents. Now, and of course, his grandmother served in the actual military as the heir to the throne. Now, let's be clear. The United States during the Second World War never bombed at night, even though it would have protected their pilots. they used during the day, daytime precision bombing, something called the Norden bomb sight, which was the second greatest secret of the war after the atomic bomb, precision bombing. But the British didn't care. They said, we're going to stop the Nazis once and for all completely, because they represent such a terrible evil that unless we carpet bomb the entire country, we're never going to see peace in our time. And they never apologized for it. Israel uses the American daytime precision bombing, losing hundreds of its soldiers when, of course, its Air Force could flatten Gaza. And here comes the Prince of Wales and says, why doesn't everybody like roast marshmallows together and give up the fighting? I'll tell you why, Prince William. You have a wife. You wouldn't want to see anything happen to her. Do you know that 400 women were shot in the vaginas, their breasts cut off, played like with a volleyball with the terrorists? Do you know that children were decapitated, people burned alive? So if there were a ceasefire, Hamas says, we're going to do this again and again and again until every last Jew on earth is dead, which is why Prince William's grandfather, George VI, told Winston Churchill, bomb and do whatever you need to do to stop Britain from being annihilated. And we haven't even employed in Israel these things. So I just wish Prince William was a little bit more knowledgeable of the history.
Well, beyond that, it's just unusual for a royal who is going to be king to get involved. They are supposed to be apolitical, and the late Queen was always apolitical. You really had no idea where she stood on so many issues, and that's the way it's supposed to be because they are not elected officials. Now, Rabbi, you just recently had a panel discussion on my predecessor, Piers Morgan's program, with Norman Finkelstein, who is a staunch critic of Israel and Zionism. He made some truly hideous comments, I've got to say, celebrating October 7. But the discussion you had with him on that program got really heated, it got ugly, and now you've come under fire for being too emotional and attacking Finkelstein personally. Do you regret that? I know this is just storming all over social media. Tell me about why you got so heated with this.
If anything,
because I saw even Piers Morgan. I saw even Piers Morgan have a go at you.
Yeah, I actually think that Piers Morgan is a gentleman, and the reason why he wrote what he wrote on X, that Shmuel, you got too personal with him, was to protect Norman Finkelstein, because he was so obliterated in that debate. He was so embarrassingly demolished. First of all, his entire debating style is this droning monotone that puts you into a coma, and then like a prize fighter who's about to be knocked out, he kind of wants to run out the clock, so he tries to dominate the debate. If anything, I was way too easy on him. Let's be clear about who Norman Finkelstein is. He wrote a book that said that we use the 6 million Jews who were gassed to death in the Holocaust. We Jews use it today only to make money. We use it to shake down Switzerland, to shake down Germany, and to get giant payments from Swiss banks. If that isn't disgusting enough, on October 7th, hours into the attack, he actually wrote that every fiber of my being is celebrating the attack on the Israelis.
What he said was bad enough. We don't need to put any mayonnaise on it. It was pretty bad.
He directly referenced the child and the children's faces. Now, what you're saying is what his defense was. He's saying, I did say that every fiber of my being is celebrating this, but I did not know that beyond 50 Jews were murdered. So let's say it was 50, Rita. Let's say only 10 women were shot in the vagina, 10 Jewish men were decapitated, and only 20 Jewish children were burned to death. So he's saying then it would have been okay. That was actually his defense to Piers Morgan. Norman Finkelstein, we were only talking about him for one reason. Because if Jews are news, which they are, according to the classic journalistic idiom, then Jewish anti-Semites get the brightest headlines. He's a Jewish Jew hater, and therefore he gets the most news. Now, he actually said in an interview in 2016 that he gets paid for all these lectures to attack Israel. And he actually said that he's upset at BDS because they said Norman Finkelstein is a nobody. The Jews don't care about him anymore. He said, I used to get 40 paid lectures a year. Now I only get 4. That's why he keeps on upping the ante. Every year he needs to say something more outrageous on Piers Morgan or any other show in order to keep on bringing in the cash. So, and I want to be clear about that. So when he said October 7th that he was celebrating it, this is all in the hope that he'll get on TV and we will talk about it. That doesn't excuse, however, the barbarity of what he said, the monstrosity of what he said. He called Israel a satanic state from hell. He said that Israel comes from the boils of hell. He accused us Jews 5 separate times of genocide. He started in 1982 in the war in Lebanon.
That is well documented. His history of standing with Holocaust deniers and saying all sorts of terrible stuff. I am not disputing any of that at all.
But how bad are we at genocide? If we tried it 5 times and we failed, and we Jews kind of suck at genocide, we need to read like the Dummy's Guide to Genocide, because we've tried it 5 times. And in the entire Arab-Israeli conflict, in 75 years, about 130,000 people have died. As far as Gaza is concerned, 1 million residents have been added to Gaza since 1967 when Israel took control of it. So if a genocide means that the population grows by double what it was getting, that's not a genocide. This is a blood libel. It's the same thing as saying that Jews drink the blood of Christian children, that Jews poison the wells of Europe. He is absolutely guilty of blood libel. So not only do I not regret what I said, I went way too easy on him. I regret that I wasn't tougher on him. And the Jewish community is saying that I should have been much tougher. Because you know what, Rita, we're tired of disgusting pigs like Norman Finkelstein who say Jews love blood. He used the word bloodlust. We love to murder. We love to kill. We're vampires. We like drinking blood. He's disgusting.
Rabbi Shmuley, we've run out of time, but I think you have made your point very clear indeed. Rabbi Shmuley Bertayek, thank you so much for your time this evening. And that's it from me tonight. I'll see you Monday at 11. And don't forget, Outsiders, Sunday morning. Up next is Newsnight. Good night.